Well, hello and welcome to Circus History Live. I'm Bruce Hawley, president of Circus Historical Society. Circus History Live is produced monthly by the CHS in celebration of the 13th annual World Circus Day. Tonight's episode will feature Zsuzsanna Mata, who is vice president of the Fédération Mondiale du Cirque, Wayne McCary, who is Zsuzsanna is executive director of the Fédération Mondiale du Cirque. Wayne is vice president of the Federation and also a CHS trustee, and Rodney Huey, who is director of the Federation's Global Alliance of Circus Schools. So without further ado, Chris Berry, our host, go ahead and take it, Chris.
Thanks, Bruce. Today, this broadcast is being recorded on the 16th of April, 2023. It's World Circus Day weekend because World Circus Day was yesterday. World Circus Day, an international day of circus arts celebration. It's an opportunity to not only raise public awareness and share the wonders of the magical world of the circus, but it also allows supporters and circus lovers to kind of create unforgettable moments, as they often do at the circus. It was established in 2010 by Princess Stephanie of Monaco to really publicize the role of circus as part of our shared global heritage, really. And it's held each year with hundreds of circuses around the world participating in the celebration, as well as other events such as this one, Circus History Live. Again, created by the Fédération Mondiale du Cirque. And I want to welcome in our guest, Zsuzsanna Mata. You are executive director of the Federation. Tell us, how did this start now 13 years ago?
It started in Europe. So in 2008, we had the first European Circus Day. And it was a result of the European Circus Association, which was formed a couple of years before. And as the Federation was founded at the end of 2008, so early spring in 2009, we immediately decided to make this event bigger and global. So in 2009, the first Circus Day took place, which was a new initiative. But since the first year, I should say that the interest was growing year by year very, very much, and the interest was very, very high.
Zsuzsanna, for those who don't know you, you're joining us tonight from Hungary. You are so active with the Federation and the role that Princess Stephanie of Monaco plays. But this has been a long history with the Grimaldi family in Monaco. Can you just tell us a little bit about that and how it led up to Princess Stephanie making this kind of proclamation in 2010?
So Princess Stephanie is our honorary president, and we are very fortunate to have her as honorary president and have the organization based in Monaco. So actually, this year, we are celebrating the 100 years of Prince Rainier, and next January will be a very important moment for the Federation as well, because we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Monte Carlo Circus Festival. So it started 50 years ago, and when Prince Rainier organized the first festival, that was a birthday gift for Princess Stephanie. She was very fond of the circus, and this love and dedication we can witness today as well. So it was Prince Rainier actually who had the dream to found a global professional circus organization which can promote and preserve circus culture and represent the interest of the circus community.
And of course, one of those, when you think of global involvement, and obviously a lot of us on this call are in the United States right now, Wayne McCary, who is a longtime circus producer in the United States. Wayne, you became involved at a very early part of this. What do you do to kind of promote World Circus Day in your role?
Well, I think we, through organizations here in the United States, particularly the OABA, we tried to get the message out to members and others so that they can take part in this event. And of course, as Zsuzsanna was talking, I'm thinking in the formation of the Federation, one of the major goals was to try to elevate the status of circus performers, because circus to us is really an art form. And we've come a long way, but we still have a ways to go. And I think this outreach, putting the circus in the spotlight on a singular day around the entire world can help us achieve that goal that we set when the Federation was actually born.
And when you look back, 50 years from the first festival, 13 years now from the first World History Day, you know that the circus has continued to evolve in that time. And one of the things that has really grown is the youth circuses and the schools where people learn circus arts. And Rodney, that's kind of your area of responsibility. Tell us a little bit about what's out there preparing either new circus performers or just people in the circus skills and arts.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, Chris. And I became involved with the Federation. I think in 2009, I was asked over to Monte Carlo to give a presentation of something as media training, and got very interested in the Federation, was asked to be an advisor, which I'm still honored to hold that role. What's happened since then, and I think Zsuzsanna and I have had a lot of conversation about this, there's been an explosion of youth circus like you wouldn't believe. I think the Federation was involved as a bit of a sponsor for the 2017 Smithsonian Folklife Festival. It was the 50th, their golden anniversary of Folklife Festivals. It was held on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. And it honored circus for the first time ever. Circus was honored. And it was really interesting because they draw about almost 250,000 people. And most of it was youth circus. Instead of being circuses, the ringlings, the other things, instead of that participating, it was circus schools, because the National Education Association, National Endowment for the Arts, put out a paper and said the circus is part of a big global grassroots movement. And I think at that point, people started thinking of circus not only as circus entertainment, which it is, we all know, but the term circus arts started being using it. So instead of everyone just going to a circus and seeing a circus, young people are wanting to, quote, practice circus arts. And they become involved in, I think, it's the biggest movement. I can't even remember of any youth movement. And the Federation in 2020, January 2020, invited a handful of what we call elite circus schools from around the world. They go all the way from the United States to Australia and now to New Zealand, and said, how do we get you guys talking to one another? How do we get you to exchange information? How do we get you involved? The people in Sarasota, Florida should be talking to the people in Beijing, China, and the people in Hungary could be talking to people in Sydney. And we came up with the idea of having the Global Alliance of Circus Schools, we call it GACS, G-A-C-S. And it's been going ever since. We lived through COVID, as everyone did, but we're really back on track, and we have Zoom calls about quarterly. But every year at the first of the year, which we start again in January in Monte Carlo, we start talking about World Circus Day and what can we as an organization do. One year there was we held a juggling tour. Then the next year we held a thing called Pass the Cube. We had each school make a little cube, about an 8-inch cube, and someone would throw it in from one side and catch it and do things and throw it to the others. And we passed the cube through about 16 schools. And that was in celebration of World Circus Day. And this year we have put together, and it just got posted yesterday, we put together the GACS World Circus Day Showcase 2023, and it was where 17 schools sent videos of the best students, advanced students. We put it together in one ensemble through online streaming called Spectacular TV. It continues to grow. These are the future stars of the circus, and I'm a big proponent, as you can tell, but it is a huge movement, a huge movement.
Well, you think about like high school athletes, most high school athlete will never become a professional, but they will always have a love for athletics. And I think there's a lot of similarities with the circus. So even someone who may not become a professional juggler because they have those talents, they will appreciate it. And hopefully they will become advocates in the future too.
Yeah.
So I want to just real quickly put up a slide here. So if these are where the events were held yesterday, and I think also today our call is on here too. Zsuzsanna, tell me a little bit about, this is like on virtually every continent in the world. There's something going on, or there was.
So we are trying to push the future participant of World Circus Day to register on our website to get the information what is going on and where. So here you can see that there are a lot of countries already on our map, and this number will increase, of course, when we finally get all the information. And they were different exciting events all around. So they are some which really would make news internationally. For example, yesterday afternoon, we had a very special stunt realized by our artist, Hungarian high wire artist, who crossed the Danube on 30 meters high, and the track he has to cover were 300 meters. I should say that it took him 25 minutes, and during these 35 minutes, he was just risking his life. On the other hand, the weather didn't favor us to that, because the wind was really, really strong, and it was raining a little bit. So, but
I have a video I want to show of that, Zsuzsanna. It's not going to last 25 minutes, but we can get an idea of what the people in Budapest saw yesterday. And let's see if we can roll this. The audio is kind of low because of the international aspect that they put up an English subtitle, but you'll get the idea. And if you love circus, you'll love this act. Here we go.
A daring stunt over the Danube. In Budapest, multi-award-winning high-wire artist Laszlo Sumet Jr. became the first person to cross Europe's second longest river by tightrope. The spectacle marked the grand opening of the 10th International Theatre Olympics.
Egy kicsit szimbolizálva azt, hogy átmentjük a kulturális értékeinket, hiszen mi dolga van a művészetnek háborús időszakban, Covid után, mint hogy az apáinktól, a nagyapáinktól megkapott értékeket, azokat átvigyük a túlsó partra, átmentsük a túlsó partra, és adjuk át a gyerekeinknek, adjuk át az utókornak. Csapatmunka, megvalósuló csoda.
While the sun failed to make an appearance, the stunt star said he was relieved that the wind and the rain held off too.
Az egyik fő aggodalmam az volt, hogy a szél mennyire fogja lögdösni a rudat a kezembe. A kamerák, a ráerősített kamerák extra felületet adnak, a rud maga könnyű volt, ha bár a kamerákkal már elég nehéz lett.
The performer has previously appeared in shows with the Cirque du Soleil and played an important role in the 2012 London Olympic and Paralympic closing ceremonies. This year's International Theatre Olympics runs from the 15th of April to the 24th of June.
So
don't buy another toothbrush until you see what this one can do. Using it.
Don't need to sell the product there. So, one of the things that we have definitely seen from that particular act is the press that the circus gets, and we've seen this around the country, around the world, actually. It's amazing, and I've got to think that, Zsuzsanna, you don't even really know everything that happened this weekend at this point, right?
Yes, we don't know everything, but there are still some events which I would like to mention. One of the members of the European Parliament, also the day before yesterday, on Friday, organized a huge Zoom conference. They invited professionals from the European Commission, and those experts explained to the circus directors and those interested in how to apply for EU funds and grants for culture and for the circus. So actually there is money which we can use, but we have to learn how to apply for it, what kind of projects we should prepare to be able to participate in these projects. That was something which was practical and very important for circus people in Europe. I should mention also that this year in Afghanistan, we had a lot of cities and even small places when they did something for World Circus Day. The situation in Afghanistan, it's very, very difficult. So girls cannot participate in the trainings, but there are some provinces where they are allowed. So now Mini-Mobile Circus of Afghanistan is trying to use every opportunity to involve the children and make them happy a little bit under these really difficult times and situation. Otherwise, I should say that like in the States, in Europe and in Australia, in China and other places, so special open houses, teaching circus skills, opening exhibitions, introducing new books, stuff like that, so which is very, very easy to do, to place.
So there's a photograph that was taken yesterday at the Ringling Museum in Sarasota, Florida. As you can see, they had a lot of children out there. They were talking about circus arts and things like that. And I think it's just terrific that these institutions are also embracing it. And Wayne, you know, you talked a little bit about the Outdoor Amusement Business Association, OABA, which you have long been involved with, and OABA is involved with the Federation too. Just tell us a little bit about what that organization is and who's in it.
The OABA is an organization that's made up, I'll call them itinerant people. It's basically made up of membership of people who are in the carnival industry in the United States and the circus industry. And it's a professional organization. We'll talk for a minute specifically about circus. The OABA has had a very strong presence in appearing before legislatures in this country and carrying on a major effort to protect animals in the circus. We've had workshops year after year. And we've always been represented. In fact, in many of the states, it would be Ringling and the OABA fighting for the legitimacy of animals in the circus. So those are some of the major goals, but it's the only really professional organization in the United States that undertakes legal work, you know, dealing with problems that traveling people in those industries run into with the Department of Transportation, changing laws in various states. Those are the kinds of things it undertakes. Chris, you mentioned about how important the media coverage is, and it reminded me of an important project that the Federation undertook with Rodney's help a few years ago, and that was to publish a directory defining circus terms throughout the world. And as you know, there's often the media has carried sometimes misnomers when they're using circus terminology. One I always think of is they refer to the Walendas, which we all know, as the flying Walendas, which really, in terms of the business, makes no sense. But nonetheless, the great Walendas on the high wire are stuck forever with that term. And of course, there are many others. And we made a big effort to put together a glossary that correctly defines what some of these terms are. And it was very interesting to me that some of the terminology, the definition is different in some of the different countries. It's not always exactly what we think the term means here in the States.
Very interesting. Rodney, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add to that a little bit. What Wayne said, that's what I found terribly important. We've tried to come up with first the top 100 terms. There's no way to really decide which terms, but you divide it down by discipline, aerial, animals, and all that. But what I found from working with the Federation and spending some time in Europe, getting to know some European circus directors and whatnot, what Wayne said is true. I had several people say, Rodney, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not what it's called. It's not this, it's not that. In Europe and in other places, Australia, the terms are not the same. And we talked about it. We're going to try to break it down. Sometimes we did, but what I found is they're all doing the same thing. But the terms usually come through some history of the circus in that particular country. But in general, it was very good because it gave you a broad scope. But yes, the terms are not the same everywhere.
It's very interesting, to kind of take a look at, again, from a global perspective, how things have evolved over the years and how they will continue to. You mentioned, of course, the importance of OABA when it comes to animals and things like that. I just want to show you a picture of something. This is from yesterday, World Circus Day, the Elephant Hotel in Somers, New York. A lot of people are aware, and maybe some are not aware, of the fact that some people say this is the birthplace of the American traveling circus in Somers, New York. This fellow by the name of Hakalia Bailey had one of the first elephants, Old Bet, they called it. And this Elephant Hotel has been there for many years. Yesterday, Bruce Hawley, the president of the CHS, represented the Circus Historical Society at this event where they took a statue that they'd had there for a long time and they replaced it with a bronze statue. But it was great to see some of the news coverage on that because somebody had the foresight to put together a wreath in memory of Old Bet, which was made up of peanuts. And so, of course, that was a great media event, photograph and things like that, which was yesterday, and that was in the town of Somers, New York. So we're going to kind of continue on here, and I want to talk a little bit now about, again, the Federation itself. And Zsuzsanna, we think of the Monte Carlo Circus Festival as being sort of the premier event. What are some of the other things that the Federation does to promote circuses?
So the Federation is a global organization which main goals are to preserve and promote circus arts and represent the interest of the circus community. So we have different projects which help to realize our dreams and ideas. So we have to understand that a professional organization, besides realizing concrete projects, they are interfering and having contacts with the government, with the cultural ministers, giving advices how to solve certain problems in different countries. So we, as an organization, try to represent officially the interest of the sector in different countries and in a different way, of course. So when we are speaking about preservation, so the Federation launched in 2012 the so-called UNESCO project. The idea is to push countries towards to register circus arts in the national inventory of intangible cultural heritage. I should say that since 2012, when Europe, we had no country which had this registration. Today we have Holland, Hungary, Finland, Sweden, Germany, the last edition, a couple of weeks ago, Wallonie, and I know that France and Italy is working hard on that. Overseas, we reached that in Chile, so they have this important registration. So when we have more countries, so we go for a multinational application to the UNESCO Paris to globally recognize circus arts as intangible cultural heritage. Besides, we have another important project, which is now only in Europe, the so-called Big Top Label project, which is a quality insurance system for circuses. Simply saying, we would like to make a difference between good and not so good circuses. And this is a very complicated procedure, and we had to find an organization which is out of our world, out of the circus, which is neutral in that sense, and whose opinion and judgment would be accepted by the circus community. So again, that's the European Parliament, which gave a helping hand to us. So that committee, which is supervising circuses who want to have the Big Top Label certificate, so it's coming from the European Parliament.
Very interesting. Just a reminder, you are listening to Circus History Live. This is a monthly presentation from the Circus Historical Society. If you're not already a member, I would urge you to check out circushistory.org. Circushistory.org is it's a website that has a lot of resources behind it. It also has access to Bandwagon, which is our quarterly publication, the Journal of Circus History around the world. And we get together every month and talk about some aspect, including sometimes, like today, circus history as it's unfolding. And I want to talk a little bit about that because there's been a lot of discussion recently, especially since animals are not involved as much in the circus any longer, as what constitutes a circus. My personal opinion is that it is always evolving. The circus has always evolved. And what we find through World Circus Day is that the circus exists in a lot of places. They just may not call it circus. So Wayne McCary, I mean, when you take a look at what's happening around the world, Zsuzsanna talked about, in Afghanistan. What's a circus to you?
Yeah, I think the circus, I agree with you. The circus has developed and changed throughout its history. The absence of animals, of course, is probably one of the biggest changes in our lifetime. However, with the closing of Ringling, as you know, there was so much national publicity about the closing that unfortunately too many people thought that that was the end of circus in America. And of course, that's far from true. And what's been developing is what I call niche circuses. These are circuses that take place in certain locations, and they meet certain needs. Some of them are still tented, others are in theaters, some are in outdoor stadiums, some are in high school and school gymnasiums. And they reflect the multi-talents of people throughout the industry. There's tremendous talent. You mentioned earlier, you related it to sports. Fortunately, because of the advent of all of these circus schools, people, I think, are developing a new keen interest in the various forms of physical skill that the folks are using. And you can bring these together in great combination. Recently, Bruce and I had an opportunity to visit the new Flip Circus, which is, I call it a vest pocket edition of Circus Vasquez. This circus is a smaller tented venue that seats about 800 people. Now that's in comparison to their big show, which seats over 2,000 people and is still successfully on the road in big cities. But Flip has been designed by the Vasquez family to play smaller markets. So they have a much smaller venue, but we can tell you that the performance is first class. The talent that they have, many of the performers are ones that we have seen on our trips to Europe. And they have an incredible live band. The music draws a lot of people to the show, and they are in their second year's tour. And I'm happy to say that that's an example of a new kind of smaller circus that's top-notch, first-class performers and doing quite well.
So Rodney, your earlier career on your resume, you have years of promoting Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, performances that were held for 10,000 people, animal acts like Gunther Gable Williams and Axel Gaudier and people like that in the United States. And now you're dealing with these children really who are learning the circus skills. Where do they find the instructors for these schools?
These are very good questions with very long answers, but with Ringling and what I tend to call classical circus, traditional, a lot of different names. It's not just mean circus with animals, but it usually do. It was really so family based that a family would teach their kids and some skill, and then they would pass it down generation to generation. You read a lot about the Knox and others, about 5, 6, 7 generation circus. And I think that was kind of the lifeblood of the circus, and the skills passed on. And they did innovate and did new things. And they also intermarried kind of family to family of 2 circus dynasties. So it's a fascinating thing to watch. What I'm saying today is, for whatever reason, something tipped over. And some of it had to do with wrangling and the animal issue and all that we won't get into, of course. But we're seeing people that are joining the circus are performing that are first generation. Their parents weren't circus people. They work for the government, the lawyers here. So we're seeing a younger first generation people who want to learn circus skills because they love what they do. They love the challenge of it, and it's strictly the circus arts. And it's not necessarily family-based. I would dare say that in any contemporary circus you see now, what they call contemporary, I doubt if many people in there would be kin to one another, or my cousin, my brother. So that's definitely changed. It hasn't changed the circus itself. It hasn't changed circus arts, but people are learning new skills. And you said who's teaching? A lot of the more traditional circus performers, the Knox of the world, are teaching people and passing this on. And so that's where they're getting the teachers. In the Global Alliance of Circus Schools, we really don't have many rules. We don't say you can or can't. It's a very open forum. But one thing we ask people to do to qualify to become this is they need coaches or trainers that have professional experience, and they have actually been in the ring under the spotlights. They know what they're doing, and not just people who enjoy circus or they've been to circus, or when they were a kid, they almost learned to juggle. So they're trying to keep that, all schools that I know of are trying to keep that professionalism that high. I mean, look at Circus Sarasota, what Pedro Reyes does down there, which bringing in all kinds of coaches, Juventus bringing coaches from Cirque du Soleil. So they're bringing people in to pass it on. But the aspect of my father and my father's father did this, and I will too, and my children will, probably is getting smaller every day.
I think you are correct. If you have any questions for Zsuzsanna, Wayne, or Rodney in the chat room, feel free to put something in there. We'll try to get to as many questions from you as possible in the time that we have left. Zsuzsanna, when you, I mean, you are in Europe. There are obviously, you know, crossing borders and things like that. I've got to think that COVID was a real challenge for the circuses in Europe. Well, they were around the world, but really in Europe too, right?
Yes, it was a real challenge. It was a very difficult time because all the circuses, all the cultural places, cinemas, museums, everything was closed. So there was no way to work. The good news is that in those countries where the artists, where the circuses worked properly, I mean, paying taxes for the artists, so they were in a good position, like in the Benelux, in Holland, Belgium, Luxembourg, in a way in Germany as well. That the situation was quite good in Hungary in that sense. So they got a monthly payment, you know, which could help to maintain themselves until they could enter into new contracts. But of course, the scenery, the circus scenery has changed. I mean, a lot of circuses closed down, definitely. I should say that the biggest the circus was the most difficult to cope and meet these difficulties and the COVID situation. Smaller family circuses, they could survive, of course. So that was a selection in a way in size, and also I always say that those who can come back and produce quality, so they have success. So for me the key word is quality.
So when we followed up COVID, unfortunately, with some of the global things that are continuing to happen in Eastern Europe. You know, the Russian and Ukrainian performers have been some of the best in the world over the past several decades. Did World Circus Day 2023, did we have any kind of representation in Russia this year?
We always speak about the unity of circus around the world, but what happened a little bit more than a year ago, last February, changed a little bit the situation. And actually, in Europe, very few Russian artists work. So those are here in Europe who were here before. And last year still, almost the majority of the circus buildings which belong to the Rosgos Cirque, they celebrated World Circus Day. This year, they didn't register, and I don't know about any event. Yes. So there is now let's say, a frozen relationship between let's say, the world and the Russian artists and the Russian circus people.
Well, hopefully that will be resolved soon and we'll be able to see some of those fine performers all over the world. Wayne, you have produced circuses for decades. When you look at some of the immigration issues that exist today, and I know you're not necessarily producing any shows right now, but I'm sure you kind of follow this with the OABA. It's difficult to get foreign acts into the United States now, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's always been a challenge, but immigration is a huge challenge today to bring people into the country. It's not impossible, but you almost have to guarantee artists coming into the country a very consequential, a substantial run of employment in order to bring them in. And a lot of the big acts that we see in Europe that we would love to be here over here, it's very difficult to sustain these big troupe acts here unless you have a year-long tour, much like, say, Ringling would have. Very hard to even to afford, never mind the immigration, to bring some of that kind of talent here. I did want to add something when we were talking about the lack of animals and the new developments in the circus. The year prior to COVID setting in, I had an opportunity to produce a circus at the Indiana State Fair in Indianapolis. In over 17 days, we played to close to 90,000 people. And it was interesting because there was a lot of media attention, interviews. I never had a single question about the fact that there were no animals in the show. And I frequently would stand at the front door as people exited the show to get some idea as to what they liked, perhaps maybe what they didn't like. And I never had a single person ask me about the lack of animals. They had completely shifted their attention to the program.
Well, you know, I think that that's one of the things that we had a conversation, and several of us who were on this call here, with Kenneth Feld in Monte Carlo at the beginning of this year. And he was talking about the fact, you know, the relaunch of the circus and so forth. And you know, you have a brand, I got to tell you, you have a brand that's 150 years old and it's still out there. And we've already discussed the fact that, you know, things do evolve. I've got to think that if P.T. Barnum were here today, or if the Ringling Brothers were here today, they would be delighted in the fact that their creation is continuing. Again, I don't know that for a fact, but that's what I would think. Rodney, one of the questions that came from someone who's watching is if, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but what are some of the terminology maybe you touched on earlier that is different because it's different regions of the world? Again, I hope I didn't put you on the spot, but maybe there are a couple of things you can think of.
Well, one thing for sure, I'm probably still in discussion with some people, the difference in foot juggling and Risley. There are differences, but basically a lot of places call anything happening juggling with the feet, whether it's other human or obstacle, pretty much call it Risley, as you would kind of call it a brand name, a Kleenex type thing. I'm trying to think what they call the, we call them what, roustabouts, the whole term of roustabouts and the working people. There were a lot of different terms for that. I'm trying to think what they called it in South Africa, road something, they call them like road people or something. And that's what you knew were the working people. As far as the acts themselves, pretty much a lot's the same, but it was a lot about the administration, how they set up a tent, what they call the tent and setting it down, those kind of terminologies.
Yeah, and for those who care, Risley Act, you've seen it, foot juggling. It was an American, actually, Richard Risley Carlisle, who took that act, I believe, to Australia and kind of that's how that terminology kind of spread around. But now, I don't know, I call it a foot juggler. So, you know, we've had events. In fact, there are people on this call who participated in events. I know at the Showman's Museum in Gibsonton, Florida yesterday, they had an event. All over the world, we've had events. I hope that in the days and weeks to come, we will be learning more about those things. I want to thank all of you for joining us today, but especially Zsuzsanna Mata, Wayne McCary, and Rodney Huey, who have explained a little bit more about what World Circus Day really is and how we're able to celebrate it globally. It's a tremendous thing. I hope that Zsuzsanna, when you're speaking with Princess Stephanie next time, you can tell her how those of us who had joined this call today, I think we're all unanimously supportive of what she has done to create this holiday. And I hope that we all are able to do it in the future. Again, you've been listening to watching Circus History Live. Circus History Live is a monthly program that is put on by the Circus Historical Society, where we talk about not only the circus of yesterday, but also the circus of today. I hope you'll join us again. And I hope you'll take a look at circushistory.org, which is our CHS website. Consider joining if you're not already a member, and we will see you down the road. Bruce?
Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the program, and the recording will be up tomorrow on the Circus Historical Society YouTube channel. Zsuzsanna, thank you for staying up so late. I know it's way after midnight in Budapest. Rodney and Wayne and Chris and Anya, who's doing technical on this, thank you so much for making this happen. And as Chris mentioned, if you'd like to learn more about circus history, please consider joining the Circus Historical Society at circushistory.org. Thank you again and have a great evening. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.